right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We are going to be talking about D365 licensing with all the recent changes from Microsoft. As you know, those changes happen at your renewal. Today, we're going to talk about not only how you can get compliant with Microsoft recent policies around licensing, as well as how you can stay compliant. Because for a lot of our our clients from Microsoft, that renewal has already happened. So you're probably already compliant with Microsoft guidelines and then policies around licensing. But today we're going to also be focusing about what are the risks beyond just getting compliant one time, why you should keep an eye on your licensing, and how you can actually do it in the least expensive or with minimum amount of effort, how you can stay on top of your licensing for D365 finance and operations. So my name is Mo. I'm a D365 architect, has been in the area for about 12 years. And my background is as well in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation, as well as in Dynamics 365 CE, so customer service, marketing, field service, and all the Dynamics applications. Today, I'm joined by Nastaran, our D365 Finance and Operation architect and lead developer. Um, Nastaran and I, we have been doing quite a number of licensing projects to make sure our clients are um, aware of all the rules that are coming in by Microsoft, that have been introduced by Microsoft, and they stay compliant with those rules. So yeah, today we'll be very happy to be presenting this to you all. Just before we get started, who we are these Dynamics 365. We are a Microsoft solution partner specialized in uh, Dynamics products or BizApps products. So finance and operations, Dynamics CE, Power Platform, data analytics, and AI are the core competencies in our company. We have existed for over a decade, and our top values are integrity, people, passion, and performance. We always try to achieve real impact solutions for our customers. We also have designations from Microsoft showing our commitment to Microsoft ecosystem and all our track record with implementing Microsoft BizApp solutions. All right. So today, first of all, we're going to talk about, for those of you who have gone through the renewal, and as many of you might have already known, Microsoft, they impose or they put in place validation rules at your renewal of your contract or your anniversary. So if your contract is ending, that is your anniversary. If your contract is not ending, but it's your renewal time of the year, the new rules will be in place for you. Why you have to, number one, do the license compliance, and why you have to continue monitoring your licensing. Then we're going to be talking about basically just put everyone on the same page, making sure we all understand the basics of licensing for D365 finance and operations. We'll talk briefly about the license enforcement, when it happened, when it's going to happen to each client, and how you have to watch out for all those error warnings from Microsoft. And then in section 4, we'll talk about how you can stay compliant, what are the basic tools you can use at your disposal, PPAC and Microsoft Admin Center to stay compliant. We'll talk about the budget overrun, how you can optimize your license purchase options. It's not always that you need to buy from a partner or you need to buy from Microsoft. You can actually buy from both options. And then finally, we are going to be talking about, in the age of AI, how can that affect your licensing? How can you manage your licensing using an AI agent? We'll be demoing one agent that we have developed, and we are using it across our clients. Again, the use of AI for D365 F&O licensing. That would be a very interesting video that we'll be demoing at the end of the presentation. So if you're anxious to hear about that, stay tuned for this presentation of the agent. All right. So as many of you know, Microsoft, they use new rules at your renewal. Basically, when your renewal date or contract anniversary date arrives, Microsoft are going to look at your users. They're going to look at their security rules, and they're going to ask you to buy the right license for the right user. What we have seen across many customers where they have gone through renewal is that this is not a one-time thing that you do and you let it be like that. We have advised many of our customers to still, keep an eye on that. For sure, your compliance with Microsoft policies is going to be good, that you do your license right sizing. But then, license creep happens very easily. A lot of people change departments, new users join, new legalities are introduced. So you can easily go back to a position where you are not compliant with Microsoft rules, and you have to buy new licenses. You're not compliant with from an SOD perspective, separation of duty perspective. You're no longer in compliance, as well as your costs. Your costs could easily grow up because now you're adding a new legal entity, you're adding new users, and just going in and buying a license that you think is going to cover them. Some most of the time is the most expensive license, is going to put you in a position where your license is going to get extremely extensive in a few months' time. So really, you have to do that renewal. You have to get compliant with Microsoft new policy, but the risk still stays there if you do not monitor it properly. So why we care, because there are always opportunities, and then this is just one example where we went to work with a client. They were on a 5-year contract, and they were estimated to be $3.5 million in annual license spending, over 2,000 users. We worked with them. We did a full license review in under 4 weeks, and we actually identified significant amount of waste in their licensing. They were extremely unhappy about how they have to increase their costs from their existing contract to the new contract. It was basically 4 times more expensive. They were having discussions with Microsoft, very unhappy about the situation. They cannot just have 4 times, they cannot just spend 4 times more on their licensing. So we went there, we helped them, we did an evaluation. We actually brought them down from 3.5 million to 1.1 on an annual basis. They achieved full compliance with Microsoft, and then the result was very satisfactory, and they were a happy client with Microsoft as well. So what happened in that case, they actually got very good incentives from Microsoft. They got free Copilot license, the free Copilot credits and other stuff. And per user, the amount of saving was so big that they could actually pocket $50 monthly per user. So that saving was huge. That is why we think every customer, they have to have a very curious look into their licensing and making sure they're compliant, and what are the opportunities that they can find to optimize that. Um, so that is one thing, and a lot of our customers say, what are the type of saving we can make, and we have created a simple calculator, and Nasaran, if you don't mind, showing that very quickly, where you just put in your number of users here, and then we kind of calculate how much saving you can make. So for example, it's for a very small implementation of 100 users, you can easily make in hundreds of thousands, as you can see, $108,000 in on a 3-year optimization. And again, that depends on a lot of factors, but if you just put in the number of users you have, what would be a typical saving you can get? And again, this is a saving. Why? Because so far the licensing was an honor-based system, so basically anyone could have any security roles, and people were not obliged to go in and assign the right license to those users. All these savings are happening because we are switching from that honor-based system to a system where everything is validated. So feel free to use this. The parameter that we are using here is just the number of users. We do have some assumptions, but just to give you an idea, if you have, for example, here 500 user implementation, you're looking at $500,000 saving if you do your license optimization. This is free, available for anyone to use it. So feel free, if you have a number of users, at your disposal, just feel free to use this, and you can use the QR code to scan this, and just put a number of your users, and you'll get the saving. All right, so this is the QR code that you can use, and if you could go back to the previous one, let's learn for a second. So yeah, just go ahead and take a screenshot of this, or just scan this QR code on your mobile phone, and you'll be able to see the calculator. All right. So why licensing happens, especially even if you're done with your renewal, there are a lot of things that happen after, and you always want to keep an eye on what's going on with your, licensing. Number one, because people move in the, between departments, they leave, they join, they get new roles, they go to a new department. So all those changes, you don't want to just go and say, hey, someone changed their department, I assign them new security roles, and all of a sudden now they can log in. Process evolves. That's the second reason why your licensing is impacted, because you change things. You add a new module in D365. You bring in an ISV that changes your security roles, or you assign new security roles for that ISV. So things like that potentially could change your licensing as well. Your organization could expand. All organizations, it's a live entity, so you could have new legal entities, you could have new teams, you could have acquisitions, all that. And obviously, the more you grow, the more users you need to add in D365. The other reason is D365 itself actually evolves. So in D365 you will have version updates, and those will come in with new roles, new duties, and you might choose sometimes to use those new features or not. But inevitably your D365 licensing will be also impacted. And then finally, Microsoft could update the rules. The pace of the change for rules have been dramatically decreased in the past few weeks, months, because Microsoft, they have pretty much figured out all those. But we have still seen Microsoft where they change the roles and entitlements, and they evolve over time. So for all these reasons, you really want to keep an eye on what you are doing and how your licensing is evolving. And why is it hard? Why we have seen this, where people say, okay, my job is not to keep my licensing up to date, but a lot of our customers, they come to us and say, hey, how can I go ahead and monitor this on an ongoing basis, and making sure when I just add a new menu item to a privilege, I'm not risking having 10 users not being able to log in. It's not always like the cheaper license is the best option, because obviously the most important thing is that people should be able to do their job, right? And removing access easily, it's not easy. You cannot just go in and say, hey, this duty, I feel like I don't need to have that privilege assigned to that duty, or I don't need to have this menu item assigned to that privilege. It's not as easy as that, because if you just go in and remove that menu item or that report or whatever from a security privilege because you think it's not needed, then boom, right away your licensing is going to change. And the way the licensing validation works is that you have to have the exact right license to be able to see to be able to log into the application. So really, that is why many people find it very challenging to continue monitoring after that first right sizing that happens, because of, again, Microsoft rules, the actual accesses that are needed versus what is assigned to you, all the rules and security team they impose, and so on and so forth. So for that reason, we have looked at how we can leverage AI and how we can actually use AI to, number one, find overspending, costs that that's incurred that's not needed. What are your security risks? The agent will give you the right license for each user. You don't need to actually do anything. It will actually run behind the scene. You will find all the users and the right licenses they need. They will recommend the right action based on business impact. So the agent will go in and actually explore into what are the privileges, what are the menu items you can potentially remove from a user without having any impact on their day-to-day usage of D365. And then eventually it actually automate ongoing license governance. We are going to be having a full demo of the agent, how it works. Again, here that the idea is that having a licensing admin 100% looking at your licenses every day is going to be very time consuming. It's not a very pleasant task to do. Why not using an agent for this? We have an agent that we have developed for this, and we can provide it to you, and you can use it. We also do full license renew, evaluation of your D365. It's a 3-week exercise where we'll look into all the licensing you have. You'll look into all the validation and recommendations that we provide to you to, number one, stay compliant with Microsoft rules, as well as how you can optimize your security, how you can prevent all the overspending. As part of the package, you'll also get access to the AI licensing agent. So that AI licensing agent will look into everything for you, after you're fully compliant with Microsoft uh, licensing validation. If you're already validated, we can also provide a licensing agent to you, so that you can use it on an ongoing basis, and then potentially any flags in terms of security, overspending that you need to be raised. The agent will notify you and will make you aware of all these all these risks. Yeah, so with that, I'm just going to pass the floor to Nastaran. Nastaran, please get started on how licensing is actually working and how the new validation rule from Microsoft works.
Okay, thank you, Mo, and thank you everyone for joining our session. Um, in the next slide, I will quickly review the basics of licensing, and then I will talk about how we can stay compliant. Uh, and then we will demonstrate the agent. And if there is any question, any concern, you can share it in the comments. We will answer them. All right. Just okay. So, as you may hear that we have different type of licenses for D365, but the license validation will happen for the user licenses. We will talk about the two groups of licenses, full licenses and additional or cheaper licenses. The full licenses will follow the base and attach model of pricing. And we will talk briefly about the device licenses because it's important for you to optimize your cost. Um, Microsoft introduced a base and attach pricing model for the DT65 application. It means that when you have a user that needs to have multiple full access to DT65 application, you don't need to pay for the full price for all the licenses. Microsoft considered a discount for the extra licenses, and we will actually assign it as attached licenses. So in a case that the user needs a finance license and project operation license, you only pay 210 for the full license and one extra $30 for the project operation as an attached license. The cheaper license HR self-service team member operations activity are important. So you know that in some cases, your user doesn't need to have a full license and you can use the cheaper license. Like team member usually use when you have a view access. Operation activity is useful when you have a limited access to when you want to have a limited access to a couple of operations, like a user only needs to create a sales order. Here we put the table of the price of the licenses, and also we show the diagram that it actually show the relation of the entitlement of the licenses. It means that whatever team member can cover can be also covered with the operation activity, but this rule is not the same for finance and SM and commerce. For the device license, sorry, I don't know why. Okay. For the device licenses, you have a couple of process in your system that user doesn't need to interact directly with the system. They need to use a device. In these cases, for these user, you don't need to buy a user license. You just need to buy a device license, which is approximately is $85 per month. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you have heard about the license enforcement or license validation, but what is it? The license validation is actually based on your renewal date. So whenever this date is, 30 days before that, your admin will receive an email and there would be an in-app notification for the users who are not compliant. And you have only 15 days after this renewal date to fix the licensing assignment. If you don't assign the correct licenses to the user, then after these 15 days, the access to the system will be blocked. It doesn't matter if a user will use a module or not, as long as in the roles they can access to that module, they will be blocked if they don't have a required license. But for this licensing validation, there are a couple of exceptions. Like the standard system administrator role is not considered in the license validation. So users who have this role do not need any licenses. But please consider if you have customized the role and you acted as a system admin, then that role also will be considered. So only a standard system administrator role will be considered as an exception. The other thing is that the external or guest user who only have the designated external roles like vendor admin, vendor contact, these also are exempt from the licensing validation. As we said, this validation is only for the user licenses, not the device licenses. And if you have couple of users that they are only using the test environment, they are also are exempt from this validation. And a new update is that recently Microsoft introduced different agents, and now for this agent we need to have a user. These users also are exempt as long as they have the system agent role in their accesses. Service account, as they are not interact with the system directly, are also exempt. Now the question is that how we can use the existing tools in the system or out of system to stay compliant. For staying compliant, first of all, you should know what are the required licenses for your user, if you have available license in your inventory or not, and you should assign these licenses to the user. The main tool for that is the Power Platform Admin Center to monitor your licenses to see what is the required license for the user. And also there you can check if you have assigned the license to the user or not. And if you haven't, you have to go to the Microsoft Admin Center and assign the correct license to the user. For sure, it's not possible to give access to the Power Platform Admin Center for some of the user, some of the admin user. We can also give this access to the from the LCS to the user license consumption report. Uh, the reports that I explained mostly tell you about your licensing position, but they don't tell you about the reason that a user need that license. So for that, you need to use the existing tools inside of the DT65 to analyze the role that are assigned to the user and see why that user needs that license. So one of the useful report is the license usage summary. In this report, you can see the coverage of each license, what menu items are entitled for that license. And one of the new update on this report is that Microsoft introduced a feature that you can see the license per menu item. Before you cannot see the menu item entitlement in a license. You just could check it from role, duty, or privileges. But now with this, you can also check it if you assign this menu item to the role, it will cause upgrade or downgrade to your role. There are different forms under the user security governance reports, like security analysis, that you can check the access per user. You can have the granular view of these accesses. And there is another form named security process role maintain that you can define the access based on the duty that user has. And one of the useful tool is that whenever you want to apply a change to the user's access and you know that it is temporarily, you can assign it here in this form and define a start date and end time. And this way you don't need to worry if you have to maintain it and then come back and remove that access from the user. Again, there is another new form under the security governance is about the privilege user management. It's mainly used for the auditing purpose, but it also useful that you wanna monitor that user's activity to ensure that is it really required to assign that a specific role to the user or not. Um, the other good feature that it again introduced under the security governance is that you can define the security version. It is really useful when you are doing the optimization. You want to change your security role to downgrade the license. You can have a version of those security objects. Okay, thank you. Over to you, Mo.
All right. Just gonna turn on my camera. Thank you, Nastaran. So yeah, so we talked about how to stay compliant if you are willing to, to accept the overage and costs. There's simple ways to do that. But everyone wants to stay compliant, but at the same time, they want to make sure they are not having budget overruns. So what we have done, for many of our customers in the past year, since Microsoft announced the new rule for licensing, is that we have helped them, stay compliant. But we made sure, if their users, they don't need certain security rules, they won't get to buy that for them. So this is a multi-step process that we have done, and as you can see, this is it goes in cycles. So it's not something that you get done once and you're good to go. You do need ongoing governance. You do need ongoing monitoring for this, and maybe you have to do it every now and then. So we'll talk about that also, how our AI agent can help you with that. But at a high level, when you want to do license cost optimization, what we recommend to a lot of our customers is that, number one, find your high impact roles. Those are the roles that are assigned to the maximum number of people, and they drive the cost, the most expensive part of the cost. As you already know, the security roles, they have a direct relationship to your licenses. So if you can change your security roles in a way that requires a lower level license, then you'll pay less. So you do need to find those high impact roles. Second step you will do is that you are going to do a security analysis. You have to go through those security roles, and typically you find they're in the range of 10 to 15 maximum number, roles that you find. Then you'll do a full security analysis. You make sure you understand all those, privileges, all those duties, all those, permissions. You make sure you use the new user security governance, tool inside D365, which is a very awesome feature provided by Microsoft. A lot of people use that to do that analysis. Next step, you find all your findings. You make sure in the validation part that your end users, they are aware of all the changes you're going to make or you're going to propose, right? um, Security roles, security role changes or security changes in general, they tend to propagate very quickly to many users. Changing one security privilege might impact 50% of your users, and just removing one little menu item from there, it might actually have downstream effects on users that you were not aware of. So make sure you have a client validation in place. Make sure you do a uh, workshop where you would say, hey, I have changed your role, and now instead of you going to this module, sales and marketing, you can actually get the same thing from accounts receivable, and the same report is available there. So you just changing the way they are going to work is going to impact their licenses. And then you'll obviously go into, once you have that validation, you'll go into your role configuration build. Make sure you do it in test environment. Obviously, make sure you get it UAT by your users, and then finally, you will do a rollout into your production environment. One thing that's very important when you do any security change, we highly recommend that to be done, and we always do it, is that never ever delete any role from your production. Just don't do that. Number one, you might actually run into compliance limitations and compliance requirements where you shouldn't delete history. You cannot just remove something from you, so that you can have history tracking. But number two is that if something goes wrong, the effect of that is dramatic, because with one wrong license assigned to a security role, you could actually have many users not being able to log in next day, because again, that security role could be assigned to 10, 20, 100 people, right? So always make sure when you do any changes, you keep the old version of your objects, your security object, in production as well, so that if you have to roll that back to them, they're already there. That is very much recommended from our side. And then, as I said earlier, AI can solve many problems, and this is one problem that we have seen huge potential from AI, where you wouldn't need to actually get someone to do the optimization for you. Our agent will do that optimization for you. With a simple command line, you could actually say, hey, go through these users or go through, these security roles and show me what are things that I can remove, right? What are these users, what are the minimum number of security roles they can have while they could still do their job. It does use a lot of inputs from different places in D365 in Dataverse. It uses built-in intelligence from the agent to do all these analysis, and it can actually do the staying compliance part as well as reducing your cost part for you without you needing to have an expert in house. It's not just about knowing few rules here or there. It's all about how you're going to bring how those licenses are linked to those security roles. So the agent will do all that for you. In the next section, we are going to actually do a demo of how it works. And Nastaran, if you could please go ahead and play the
Welcome to our Licensing Intelligence Agent, developed by the Dev Analytic team. The agent is designed to help organizations understand, manage, and optimize their Dynamics 365 licensing. One of the key benefits is that you can bring the agent into the tools your team already uses. It can be added to Microsoft Copilot as a tool, deployed in Microsoft Teams, or made available through other supported channels in your organization. This means licensing intelligence is always accessible when you need it, whether that's for a quick question during the day, a regular monthly license review, or ongoing license management. And you're not limited to the suggested prompts you see on the home screen. You can ask the agent your own questions and create your own queries based on what you need to analyze. Now, let's take a look at what the agent can actually do. From the home screen, you can access several key capabilities. You can simulate removing a role from a user, identify your most expensive users, and analyze your current license requirements. The agent can also help you find license optimization opportunities, recommend the right roles and licenses for new users or job rotations, and identify which roles are driving higher license requirements. Now that we've introduced the Licensing Intelligence Agent, let's walk through 5 practical scenarios that demonstrate how it can support day-to-day license management. Scenario 1 is understanding our current licensing position. We can ask the agent to run a report and give us a clear picture of our current licenses, including what licenses are required and where they are being used. This gives us a starting point for understanding our current licensing position. Scenario 2 is license optimization. Once we understand our current position, we can ask the agent to identify optimization opportunities. The agent can recommend what actions we can take to reduce unnecessary licensing, remove excessive access, and make sure users have the right level of access for their responsibilities. Scenario 3 is a change in a user's responsibilities. For example, imagine a user who now needs to confirm purchase orders in the system. We can ask the agent what changes are required to support this new task. It can help determine whether we need to update the user's role and what license is required for that additional responsibility. Scenario 4 is a user transitioning to a different department. When a user moves from one department to another, their responsibilities and access requirements may change. We can use the agent to determine what roles and licenses should be added, what existing access should be removed, and what actions we need to take based on their new position. And finally, Scenario 5 is onboarding a new employee. When a new user joins the organization, we can provide the agent with their job responsibilities and ask it to recommend the appropriate role and license. This helps us give the new employee the access they need without assigning unnecessary permissions or higher-level licenses. Let's start with our first scenario, understanding the current licensing position. We'll ask the Licensing Intelligence Agent to generate an executive report showing our current licensing position and the compliance status of each user. The agent analyzes the users, their assigned security roles, and the corresponding license requirements. It then gives us a clear view of who is compliant, who is under-licensed, and who may be over-licensed. In this example, the report analyzes 35 users. Only one user is currently compliant, while 32 are identified as under-licensed and 2 as over-licensed. The report also provides a license level breakdown showing the required seats, assigned seats, purchased capacity, and estimated costs for each license type. At the user level, we can see exactly what license each person requires, what they currently have assigned, and where the gap exists. This makes it much easier to identify users who are missing required licenses or have licenses that don't match their actual responsibilities. The report then summarizes the key findings. In this example, under-licensing is the dominant issue, with 32 of the 35 users not fully covered by their current licensing. It also highlights areas where team members' licenses are being used, even though the users' roles require higher-level finance or supply chain management licenses. This gives us a clear baseline of our current licensing position, and, more importantly, helps us understand where we need to focus our optimization efforts. Now let's move to our second scenario, license optimization. This time, we ask the licensing intelligence agent to analyze our users and identify specific opportunities to optimize their current licensing. The agent assesses 35 users and identifies an optimization action for 34 of them. It also separates the recommendations into different remediation waves so we can prioritize the actions based on effort and potential impact. For example, the first wave focuses on quick wins. In this case, 2 users have licenses assigned that are not required by any of their roles. The agent recommends removing those unnecessary licenses, resulting in a potential saving of $720 per year. The second wave focuses on lower effort changes, such as reallocating unused purchased capacity. Instead of purchasing additional licenses, the agent can identify where existing capacity can be reassigned to users who need it. For more complex cases, the agent identifies a heavier remediation wave, where additional capacity or role redesign may be required. The report also provides a recommendation for each individual user. It shows their current license, the license they actually require, and the specific action recommended, for example, removing a license, swapping one license for another, or assigning a new license. Another useful capability is identifying potential savings from reviewing users who require multiple full applications. The agent can identify cases where a second application is being driven by a specific security role and flag it for further business validation. It also looks at inactive users and highlights potential cost avoidance if those accounts are confirmed as no longer required. In this example, the report identifies 14 inactive users and estimates up to $31,596 in potential annual cost avoidance. Finally, the agent looks beyond individual users and identifies organization-level opportunities, such as reallocating unused purchased capacity, reharvesting lower-tier licenses, and reviewing roles that may be unnecessarily driving higher license requirements. So instead of simply telling us that we have a licensing problem, the agent gives us a prioritized action plan, showing what we can change, who is affected, and where we should start. Now let's look at our third scenario, a change in a user's responsibilities. In this example, we have a user, L-Storm, who needs to confirm purchase orders in the system. Instead of manually checking the user's roles and permissions, we can simply ask the licensing intelligence agent to determine whether the user already has the required access. The agent analyzes L-Storm's current security roles and finds that the required access is already available through the buying agent role. In particular, the role provides the permissions required to confirm a purchase order, as well as the supporting purchase order access. So, in this case, no new security role needs to be added. The agent also looks at the licensing impact of this task. Since purchase order confirmation falls under the operations activity entitlement in the licensing data, the user does not need to move to a full supply chain management license. LStorm's required license therefore remains operations activity at an estimated $600 per year. However, the agent identifies one important issue. LStorm currently has no license assigned, so while no role change is required, an operations activity license still needs to be assigned for the user to be compliant. It also highlights an important optimization point. We could add the purchasing agent role, but that would unnecessarily increase the user's licensing requirement. The agent therefore recommends keeping the existing buying agent role rather than adding a more expensive role. This is a good example of how the agent can help us make a very specific access change while also considering the licensing impact, so we don't give users more access or a more expensive license than they actually need. Now let's move to our fourth scenario: a user transitioning from one department to another. In this example, Terry Young has
Nasran, I think we had the video cut off. We cannot hear you, Nasran, if you're talking. Yeah, I apologize for these guys or this guys. We are gonna be back online in a second. Can you share your screen, Nasran?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, just give me a second.
No problem.
Welcome to our licensing. The agent
I cannot see your screen, Nasran. I
Yes,
could
I'm
hear.
sharing that.
Oh, okay.
Just let me ensure that. Okay.
Once again, we apologize for these inconvenience.
change is required, and since fairly specific move to our fourth scenario: a user transitioning from one department to another. In this example, Terry Young has fully transitioned to the finance department, and we no longer want him to perform purchasing activities. The agent reviews his current security roles and identifies that he has several roles related to purchasing. He has the accountant role, which should be retained for his finance responsibilities, as well as the system user role, which has no license impact. However, he also has the purchasing agent and buying agent roles, which are no longer required. The recommendation is to remove both of these roles. The agent also identifies a custom role called SCM View Only. Despite its name, this role is not actually view only. It contains update level permissions for activities such as purchase order confirmation, purchase order creation, cancellation, and workflow approval. So the agent recommends either removing this custom role or reducing its update permissions to read only. This is important because otherwise, Terry could continue to have purchasing capabilities and potentially retain a supply chain management license requirement. After removing the unnecessary purchasing access, the recommended configuration is much simpler. Terry should retain the accountant and system user roles, resulting in a finance license only. This reduces his requirement from finance plus a supply chain management attached license at approximately $2,880 per year to finance at approximately $2,520 per year, a potential saving of $360 per year. There is another important point. Terry is currently assigned a team member's license, which does not cover his finance responsibilities. The recommendation is to replace that with the finance license. The report also identifies unused purchased finance capacity, so no additional purchase is required. This scenario shows how the agent can support employee transitions, not only by identifying what access should be added, but also by identifying what should be removed when responsibilities change. And finally, let's look at our fifth scenario: onboarding a new user. In this example, we have hired a new employee who needs to create sales orders and update those orders when they are delivered to customers. We can simply describe the user's responsibilities to the licensing intelligence agent and ask it to recommend the appropriate security role. Based on those requirements, the agent recommends the sales clerk role, with an operations activity license at approximately $600 per user per year. The reason for this recommendation is that the sales clerk role provides update access to sales orders, including creating and maintaining sales orders, confirming orders, and performing the required picking and packing slip activities for delivery updates. The agent also evaluates alternative roles. For example, sales representative provides sales order coverage but does not provide the required packing slip access. Credit management clerk provides the required sales access but includes additional credit control privileges that aren't necessary for this user's responsibilities. The agent therefore recommends sales clerk as the best fit based on the user's actual duties and the principle of least privilege. And that brings us to the end of our demonstration. Thank you for watching. Welcome to our licensing intelligence agent.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Nasran, if you could please move on to the next slide. Yeah, so in short, how you can optimize your licenses, just want to give you these few tips. So make sure you don't have active users, make sure you understand your security roles, those are exactly what you need to work on to get your, licenses optimized. And then, as well as if you have to do any compliance check, suppression of duties check. And then, as we already talked about it about a few times, you have to do regular review your usage, and the agent will enable you to actually just do that for you. Otherwise, if you don't want it to use the agent, you definitely make sure you have license consumption reports, checked on at least a monthly basis, if not weekly, and make sure you deactivate accounts, as your business need changes. I just want to have a bonus section here, and I talked about this a little bit early in the call. When it comes to purchasing your licenses, your procurement department might not be aware of this, but just be aware that there are a couple of options when it comes to purchasing your licenses. Sometimes it's more advantageous to go and talk to Microsoft directly, sign a contract with under an enterprise agreement. There's been changes to that. Microsoft, they call it MCAE. They are normally uh, Microsoft have more flexibility in giving you the discount, especially for the strategic client. There are a lot of incentives available from Microsoft. They tend to be a little bit less flexible though. You only have the options for 3 years, and we recently heard that the 5-year option is going to be no longer provided to the clients. You do have an annual, review for your licenses. That's your renewal date. So before, you had a annual anniversary where Microsoft they were asking you if you need additional licenses, and now it's going to be an ongoing basis. If you enter into an enterprise agreement, you cannot true down your licenses, meaning you cannot buy less, like return some of the purchase you did in the past and true down basically your licenses. You can only buy more. A CSP, or a purchasing licenses from a partner directly, gives you more flexibility. There are limited flexibility when it comes to price discounts, because CSPs or partners, they buy from Microsoft, but there are more flexibility in terms of terms. You can buy monthly, you can buy yearly, you can buy yearly and pay monthly, or buy yearly and pay yearly. So there are all those options when it comes to the CSPs. Obviously, if you gear if you bundle that up with your partner giving you support for D365 implementation and post go live, that might be a more advantageous option for you. um so yeah, that is about it. Thank you very much, guys. Just closing remarks here. What we recommend is that, number one, understand your deadline for your D365 renewal. That's the most important thing. Uh, you know, you want to make sure no business disruption happen to any users at that given deadline. Users who don't have the right license, they will be not able to log in. Just make sure you know your number of employees. Your current licensing assignment. You look at your role definitions, and you do that. Again, the agent will be the tool that you can use to actually do all that um, without you needing to actually learn all the roles, do all the optimization. So if you guys need any help from us, providing you the agent, or if you guys need any help from us doing that first time optimization, feel free to reach out to us. As we already spoke about this, we do have a 3-week exercise where we look at all your licensing. We look at all the compliance rules, all the securities. We identify your high impact roles. We make sure that you can optimize them. We make sure you get trained on that, and we will give you a full document about all the changes and that you can do to your licensing and to your security roles to make you compliant from a Microsoft, licensing rules validation, from a SOD perspective, from and while doing that, you want to make sure that your cost is also under control. What you will receive is a prioritized set of sorry, Nasser, if you could go back. What you will receive is a prioritized optimization, recommendation. You will see all your high impact, roles that have a significant effect on your, licensing costs. You will get a quantified potential renewal saving. As we talked about it earlier in the call, you could, if you give us your number of users, we can easily give you the amount of saving you can do in a typical amount of saving we see, and you'll get a full final assessment. Uh, so now we just added that, that the agent will be provided to you free of charge. You can use it, and you can that can not only do your one-time saving, but as well as it could do your online, ongoing um, governance from a security and license perspective. Um, if you need to get any help from us for the packet, please feel free to scan the QR code. Just one more example, one of our clients where we helped recently, we had 200 users.
Mo, we lost you. You're on mute.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I was just talking about another client where we work at. They actually had 200 active users, $500,000 in annual licensing. We went through their compliance from a SOD perspective, from a Microsoft licensing role perspective, and we did an approximate 55% saving in what they were going to renew with Microsoft. So if you need our help in this area, please feel free to scan the QR code and reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you with anything. Paul, So I think we have 5 minutes left. We're gonna open the floor for any questions. Please feel free to type in your question in the chat, and we'll make sure to be answered.